the mountain, and this sudden noise woke up one kid who immediately started looking around trying to figure out where he was. Suddenly he felt a severe headache like it was splitting, and he remembered that his name was Lin Feng, and he was the seventh prince of the Southern Chu Empire. He was a scum born from a servant girl who was drunkenly slept with by the emperor. With a low cultivation level and almost no strength, his only choice was to marry a Western Qin princess to become a messenger of peace between the two empires and not die in the struggle for the throne. But unfortunately, on his way to the wedding, he was attacked by assassins and died bleeding to death lying on his bed. He was the unluckiest prince in history. The guy then realized that he was that loser prince, and that he was reborn in his body. After thinking about the situation for a while, he decided that since he had been reborn, he could not remain a weak loser like in his previous life. And suddenly, a window popped up in front of him, notifying him that he had successfully activated the super selection system, whereupon it detected his level 5 hardened body and provided one free choice. The choice could give him one of three options: 1. 10,000 worlds lottery, 2. character enhancement, and 3. supreme spiritual treasure. But without thinking long, Lin Feng decided that he could get everything at once, so he decided to pierce the system window with his hand, after which many pages flew out, and surprising Lin Feng, 3 bubbles with a sword, a coupon, and a bottle soon formed out. After briefly thinking about it, he decided to touch all of them at once, and then they materialized right in front of him. Just when Lin Feng was glad that he could take everything at once, an error window popped up in front of him. Because of this, the items began to turn into spheres again. Lin Feng was not going to accept such an outcome and decided to eat the objects in order not to give them away, and as soon as he took a sip of them, the error window changed back to a white window and notified him that the error had been corrected. Lin Feng wondered why nothing was still happening to him as a huge amount of energy suddenly began to be absorbed into his body, and during this process, he could feel some of his body's functions begin to activate, and his cultivation level immediately jumped to a level 9 tempered body. As suddenly, his personal maid Lin Hong entered his room worried about his health, and when she saw that he woke up, she immediately rushed into his arms, saying that she had hoped to the last that he would make it, to which he mentally replied that he couldn't die with such a beautiful maid by his side. Suddenly, a system window popped up in front of him once again, stating a task: kill at least 2 Kaiyun rank opponents within 7 days, whereupon the door to his room was kicked in with a single leg kick. Lin Hong immediately demanded an explanation from those who dared to barge into his highness room, and the man with soldiers entered the room and immediately introduced himself. General Chen Xian, deputy commander of the Western Qin Empire Guard, said that he had received orders from Commander Wei to visit the wounded prince. Lin Feng immediately guessed that it was the commander who had organized the attack on him, which meant that they clearly did not have good intentions, and so he told the invaders that he was no longer in danger and they could leave. Hearing this, the general laughed, and suggested that he follow him since he was well, but Lin Hong wasn't going to accept that his highness was in danger and stood up to defend him. Hearing this, General Chen Xian explained that he was only called Your Highness out of respect for the Southern Chu Emperor, but he was only a bastard who was inferior to even ordinary people. Just as suddenly, Lin Feng took Lin Hong's hand to calm her down and asked what would happen if he refused to go with them, because of which the general was offended that such a lowlife would speak to him like that and ordered him to be seized. But Lin Feng became furious that someone was trying to attack him in his own home and unleashed his aura. The general was shocked that this youngster had a level 9 hardened body 2 ranks higher than his, since he was only rumored to be at 5, but Lin Feng decided to interrupt his musings by ordering him to kneel down. The latter could not but obey and immediately bowed down before his highness, after which, Lin Feng asked that person, can the fire of a moth outshine the light of the moon? And a moment later he stepped on the head of the burrowing general to teach him a lesson. This only made the general more angry and ordered him to remove his dirty feet, because compared to this bastard, he is the deputy commander of the Western Qin Guards. But Lin Feng explained to the one that since he is the 6th prince of Southern Chu, and the general had broken the law so he has every right to execute him, and immediately executed him on the spot by stripping him of his head with a single hand. Having carried out the execution, Lin Feng ordered the general's soldiers to report to the commander that his subordinate had broken the law, and so his majesty had taken his life, after which he demanded that they leave him, and they bowed to him without the possibility of disobeying him and immediately left. Seeing how brave her prince had become, Lin Hong warned him that although he had become stronger, there were still many people in the Qianyuan continent who were stronger, so she was worried about him. Late at night, an old man appeared at the gate, coming to report the news. Old man Chen paid a visit to the princess and the princess asked him what he wanted. Old man Chen bowed to her and reported that her fiancé had killed Chen Xian, the commander of the guard, and asked her how they should proceed. Song Yunlin, who is the senior princess of Western Qin, explained that the palace guards have been too relaxed in recent years and that this should cheer them up, and ordered them to tidy up as she would soon check on them. Then the old man said that he understood what she wanted, namely that Commander Wei would not cause any more trouble for the prince. Lin Feng strolled around, enjoying the night, and pondered that the items given by the system were very effective since by breathing in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth he was quickly able to overcome a level 9 tempered body. Not far from him, 2 old men sent by Commander Wei were hiding on the rooftops, and they were displeased that they, the Kaiyuan, were being asked to kill a weakling at rank 5 body hardening, and as soon as the target of their ambush hit the net they immediately jumped on top of him. But to their dismay, Lin Feng, who had broken through to the Kaiyuan rank, had long since waited for them, and after a moment, he created a blade of energy with which he immediately struck. Meanwhile, old man Chen pondered whether Lin Feng could handle 2 Kaiyuan rank opponents. After all, old men Lu and Li were among the strongest subordinates under Wei Changtian, but when he came to the scene of the fight he was astonished at what he saw, for judging from the wounds the old man had been killed by a single blow. Lin Feng returned to his room, where he was immediately met by a worried maid. Lin Feng immediately asked him not to ask too many questions and help him enter, as well as check if he was being tailed. Seeing Mr. Lin Hong's condition, she immediately assumed that the people from Western Qin had once again made another assassination attempt on him. Afterwards, Lin Feng stroked her head and calmed her down, saying that he was fine, and that he had dealt with his opponents with a single blow, but because of that, he had used up too much energy, so he would have to rest for a few days. After helping the prince, the maid left the prince's room with a heavy burden on her soul. As soon as the maid left, the system window he had been waiting for appeared in front of Lin Feng, but because he had completed his first task, the system gave him an additional option to choose from, and Lin Feng immediately chose the fourth option: 100,000 spirit stones. Spiritual stones, on the other hand, are items for storing the energy of heaven and earth, and are also used as one of the continent's major currencies. They can be used not only for cultivation, but also to purchase spiritual treasures, elixirs, pets, and even techniques, and the stones themselves are divided into low, medium, high, and high grade. Lin Feng was very happy with his choice. After all, he only received 200 stones per month, but now it was as if he had won the lottery. The system congratulated Lin Feng on his reward and informed him that since there were too many stones, they would be stored in the system space where they could be retrieved whenever he wanted. Having finished dealing with the system, the prince fell asleep, thinking about how he would spend his fortune. Meanwhile, at the Wei residence, Wei Chantian was agitated that some of his best subordinates still hadn't returned, but a servant asked the lord not to worry and served him tea. Suddenly, he sensed someone behind him and turning around he saw old man Chen, who immediately greeted him. Then the commander-in-chief asked the old man what had brought him here so late, and he threw 2 sacks on the ground, making the commander-in-chief wonder what was going on here. And old man Chen reported that one of his men had found it in an alleyway off the north of Xinjiang and the princess had ordered it to be taken to him. Commander-in-chief Commander-in-Chief Wei was perplexed and asked if the princess really knew about it, to which Old Man Shen turned around and walked away and replied that the princess was interested in Lin Feng. Hearing this, Wei Chantian boiled with anger and smashed the teacup, shouting that these two were just a bunch of trash who couldn't handle such a simple matter. He then ordered the servant to send a message to the Gogan residence. They should know that the sixth prince had taken a fancy to the eldest princess, and he, as the ordinary commander, would no longer interfere. Wei Chantian was certain that someone who had miraculously killed just two of his men would in no way be able to handle an entire residence. At Lin Feng's inn, Song Qi, the manager of the senior princess residence, came to Lin Feng's inn and apologized that she couldn't personally visit the prince because she was busy with political affairs, so she had instructed him to meet her personally. Lin Feng sighed and reflected that there was nothing unusual about this since the elder princess was not completely sincere, and told the steward that he understood that it was because she was the heir to the throne. Then he explained to him that he had come to Xinjiang for the first time and since he was unfamiliar with the area he wanted to ask for advice, and immediately gave him a spirit stone asking about where the auction was located here. The steward was clearly cheered by the prince's gift, and immediately promised him that he would personally organize everything for his highness. After a while, there were many people crowded into the Cultivation pavilion. Auction host Xiaoya welcomed the audience and confessed that it was a great honor for her to host the auction, and at the same time, manager Song Qi escorted Lin Feng to the VIP room on the way, telling him that he would be able to spend the evening without worry since his identity would be kept secret. After walking with the guest to the room, the maid gave Lin Feng a list and explained that it described the 10 treasures on display today. After looking through the list, Lin Feng inquired about the unknown treasure in the 10th place, which was worth as much as 1,000 high-grade spirit stones, exceeding the price of the other lots, and the maid explained to him that the name of the lot was hidden due to auction rules, but he needn't worry as it clearly wouldn't disappoint him. Meanwhile, Xiaoya started the auction by providing one treasure, a 9-turn soul restoration elixir that could immediately restore 70% of spiritual energy, and the maid asked Lin Feng if he was going to bid on the first lot. Lin Feng asked to be notified when there was something special, and as for the rest, she should buy everything she sees since he has enough money, while encouraging the maid. The gentleman in the hall tried to redeem the treasure by betting 15,000, 17,000, and even 20,000 spirit stones on it, but unexpectedly, Lin Feng immediately ordered the maid to raise the bet by 10,000 betting 30,000, from which the maid, even more interested in him, and began to praise him, after which, Xiaoya was reported and she announced the VIP guest bid number 15, from which all the guests were clearly shocked as that rich man had bet too much on such an item. As soon as the next item was put up, the maid reported that it was a top rank and black grade sapphire sword for 30,000, but Lin Feng immediately ordered to bid 50,000. She then asked about the skill of the 9 dragons, 9 black grade elephants for 35,000, but Lin Feng immediately replied that it was enough to bid 60,000 for them, and the gentlemen who came to the auction were in tears because the rich man at number 15 paid as much as 50,000 for some broken sword. Just as suddenly, a knock was heard and the manager Xiang entered the room. Upon entering the room, she immediately greeted the gentleman and asked why he hadn't warned her in advance that he was coming to see them, and Lin Feng explained to her that he was a prince from another country, and that he had no power in the Western Qin Empire, after which, Xiang took out a card from his hiding place saying that he was obviously joking and explained that it was the highest membership card of the Cultivation pavilion, and with this card, he could get 20% discount when bidding lots. He will also be given a VIP room with personalized service, and if his identity is revealed, he will be compensated. She then gave him the card and he complimented her saying she was good at dealing with customers. Xiang told Lin Feng that lot 8 was a local class skill, and if he was interested in it, he could offer a price between 70,000 and 90,000. He replied that he was willing to buy it for 900,000 because he, Lin Feng, was not short of money, from which Xiang was shocked and said that it was inhumane and the only explanation for it was that his family produced the spirit stones themselves, but Lin Feng ignored her, asking about the last treasure since it only listed the price and it put him in a predicament. Xiang immediately explained that this was a young egg of a Kaiyuan rank spiritual beast, and if a cultivator's blood was used to nurture it, the beast would be able to sign a contract with it. Meanwhile, Xiaoya proclaimed that the VIP guest from room 15 was taking the 8th treasure for 100,000, from which one of the gentlemen began to get angry and asked the second uncle why he does not allow to increase the rate, because the rich man from room 15 bought almost all the lots, to which the uncle replied that they knew nothing about him, and with this approach he was hardly a common man, and therefore there was no point in wasting time on him, for their aim was to buy the beast's egg. A short time later, the last item of tonight's show was brought to the stage. It was a Kaiyuan rank spirit beast egg with an initial price of 10,000. Lin Feng bit into an apple and lazily placed 5,000 spirit stones at once, but Wei Yuan wasn't about to let go of the egg and immediately raised the bet to 6,000, from which Lin Feng only grinned and bet 10,000, but Wei Yuan was not going to give up and once again outbid Lin Feng by betting 12,000, whereupon second uncle ordered him to stop it. Wei Yuan angrily explained to his uncle that they had to raise the rate, otherwise this bastard would buy back what his father had ordered, and the second uncle explained that they couldn't raise the price because they didn't have an extra 10,000 stones. Because of Song Yunlin, their Gagong residence was unable to use the money from the state treasury, from which Wei Yuan could only curse, wondering who the bastard at number 15 was. Xiang congratulated Lin Feng on his victory and explained that they would deliver all his purchases to his house the next day, to which Lin Feng replied that it was unnecessary and asked him to send everything to the address on the sheet. When she read the address, she was surprised that it was a ruined temple in the western suburbs and thought he had given her the wrong address, but Lin Feng confirmed that everything was correct and explained that he would take everything from there as the time came. At the exit of Lin Feng's room, the manager was already waiting for him, and he immediately began to praise him for this kind of bidding style, to which Lin Feng replied to him that it was natural to pursue what he wanted, and he also asked him not to tell anyone about it. As Wei Yuan suddenly appeared nearby, he immediately recognized Lin Feng and said that he didn't know that Cultivation Pavilion was becoming less and less choosy about people. The manager whispered to Lin Feng that it was Wei Yuan from the Gagong residence. The man beside him was his uncle Wei Liangli, and the old man behind him was Xing with rank 5 Kaiyuan strength, after which, Song Qi greeted Wei Yuan and introduced the princess's future fiancé to him. Suddenly, Wei Yuan started shouting at the manager saying that he was in a terrible mood today, and therefore he should stay away from him. He demanded that the wretched steward take the brat with him and get out of his sight. Suddenly, Lin Feng stood up for the clerk and punched him in the face, which made second uncle angry at Lin Feng and was about to intercede for him, but old man Xing put his hand on his shoulder and signaled him not to interfere. Wei Yuan was mad that some brat dared to hit him and was about to threaten him. Just as suddenly, Lin Feng slapped him again as if he was a mere mortal to him, and said that if he wished, he could hit him again. Hearing this, Wei Xian lost control of himself from anger and threatened to kill Lin Feng while pulling out his blade, and immediately rushed at him, but Lin Feng was able to dodge him with ease. Then he unleashed his energy to teach the arrogant one a lesson. Suddenly old man Xin grabbed his hand and asked him to have mercy on the Lord, for he had already realized his mistake. Hearing this, Wei Xian wanted to chastise old man's son for something like this, but the second uncle grabbed him and ordered him to stop. Seeing this scene, Lin Feng assumed that Wei Xian didn't understand anything, but old man Xing immediately began to reassure him. Lin Feng decided to accept it, but leaving warned him not to do this again if Wei Xian didn't want to die, after which the old man thanked the prince. Song Qi thanked the prince for his help and said that the Gagong residents had been behaving too inappropriately lately, and said that he would report it to the princess, but Lin Feng replied that it was not worth bothering her about little things. After all, Lin Feng was certain that there was nothing the princess could do about it. After reaching the carriage, Wei Xian began to ask his uncle why he didn't let him deal with that trash, but his uncle demanded that he stop this circus, for because of his insolence, he was beaten by a foreign prince, causing Wei Xian to bring shame upon their house, and if he didn't intervene, Wei Xian would become the laughingstock of others. After which, old man Xing said that probably the rumors that the prince had reached the second level of Kaiyuan were true, for he had indeed sensed something unusual about him. Hearing this, Wei Yanli said that they would have to carry out their plan earlier than planned. The next day, Lin Feng walked around, thinking about the fact that there were no suitable secret techniques and elixirs at the auction. Just as suddenly he spotted a building that might be what he needed, and opening the curtains he asked if anyone was here, from which the shopkeeper immediately spat from his hammock. Walking up to the counter, he coughed in pain and asked who it was that scared scared him so much. Lin Feng asked if he was alright, to which the seller asked him not to worry about it, saying that he would forgive him this time, and asked what he wished to buy. And Lin Feng explained to him that he would like to buy a few secret techniques that the novices use and a few elixirs to strengthen the body. And after a short period of time, there was a stack of merchandise on the counter. Lin Feng couldn't believe that this kind of junk could be used and asked the seller about it. But the man snatched the entire merchandise and demanded that Lin Feng not to touch him. Lin Feng said that he wanted to take everything for what the seller demanded, one high-grade spirit stone. Lin Feng was astonished at such a price. After all, this kind of junk usually costs several hundred middle-grade stones. Suddenly, the doors behind Lin Feng intentionally slammed shut so that he couldn't escape. And the salesman explained to him that this is his store and he alone sets the prices. Lin Feng asked the seller not to be deceived, explaining that the market price was only a few hundred medium stones. But the old man said he would recognize Southern Chu's accent, and since they were countrymen, he would never cheat. Lin Feng suggested that the old man's cultivation was quite mysterious, and he might turn out to be an outstanding master, and therefore it was not worth it to clash with him. After which he placed a stone on the table, which was immediately grabbed by the seller, and after assessing the quality of the stone, he said that his surname was Chang and that Lin Feng could contact him at any time. Lin Feng was about to leave when suddenly Chang threw him a small green object, explaining that it was a gift from him as a fellow countryman. Finally leaving this horrible place, Lin Feng swore that he would never set foot there again either. Suddenly a crowd of people got in his way, harassing his maid. Lin Feng wasn't going to tolerate this kind of thing and immediately started releasing energy. Then he struck a blow while demanding an explanation for what they were doing here. After that, the owner of those people came out to him and said that this maid had broken his 9-turn Ling Long bracelet, and because she had no money to pay, there was a conflict. But since the maid was too rude, he decided to apologize for them. Lin Hong hugged the prince and explained that he was lying since he had dropped that bracelet himself, in response to which Lin Feng asked her to rely on him. The stranger then decided to approach and introduced himself as Lu Hu from the Xingjing Chamber of Commerce. In response, Lin Feng also introduced himself to him, after which they shook hands using force. After the prince introduced himself, Lu Hu remembered this brat, and after shaking his hand, he realized that his cultivation wasn't bad, hence he decided to test it out. Therefore, he decided to test it by squeezing Lin Feng's hand with all his strength. But Lin Feng understood what he was trying to accomplish and immediately responded in kind, from which Lu Hu began to scream in pain and Lin Feng released his hand and he began to fall. After something like this, Lu Hu was forced to recognize his highness's strength, but Lin Fei only laughed at what he heard and said that since they had worked things out, he would take his spirit stone as compensation. Immediately afterward, Lu Hu noticed that his spirit stone was indeed missing, but he couldn't figure out when it happened. From treating her master like this, Lu Hu's servant wanted to take revenge on Lin Feng, but unexpectedly, Lu Hu ordered them to stop. He told them that rumors are just rumors, so they need to be careful with their actions because one day they might run into someone who will beat them up or kill them. After a while at the inn, Lin Feng reassured Lin Hong, saying that it was not her fault. She then looked the prince in the face and thanked him for his kindness, which made the prince blush, being overwhelmed by her cuteness, causing her to heckle, trying to bring him to his senses. And Lin Feng remembered something and immediately took out the recently purchased items from his bag, after which he explained to Lin Hong that he would train her in cultivation from now on, from which she blushed and replied that she could not as she was only his maid. Hearing this, Lin Feng blushingly embraced Hong Yu and acknowledged that she was very important to him. It was dawn. Lin Hong was all flushed, trying to tell Lin Feng that it was too hard for her to bear, but he, gathering the last of his strength, asked her to bear with him a little longer since he was almost done. Then she started screaming, sweating, that she couldn't take it anymore. All this time since yesterday, Lin Feng and Lin Hong had been tempering their bodies, but Lin Hong couldn't bear it anymore, after which she exhaustedly plumped down on the bed. After finishing tempering, Lin Feng sighed and explained that tempering one's body for the first time was really difficult. After all, one must pass qi through all channels, after which one must purify the body and be reborn spiritually, and only then did she embark on the path of cultivation. After explaining this, he opened his eyes and saw Lin Hong lying on the bed drenched in colors trying to tell him something. Thinking the wrong thing, Lin Feng blushed and tried to explain that they were probably in too much of a hurry to do it. But gathering her strength, Lin Hong admitted that her training made her very hungry. Finding himself in an awkward position, Lin Feng began to chuckle awkwardly, and yet Lin Hong was surprised by his reaction and asked what he wanted to say, but he asked her not to dwell on trivialities, and said he would take her to Xingjing Tavern, as manager's son said that they sold the famous spiritual tincture from the snowy mountains there. After a while, Lin Hong was satisfied that she was able to eat a solid meal, and Lin Feng praised the tincture and suggested Lin Hong to try it since it had a positive effect on cultivation. Suddenly there was a feud outside the door with the gentleman who had always taken only this room. Then he went in to see who was brazen enough to occupy it, but to his surprise, inside, he saw Lin Feng with his maid, who asked to be respectful, from which Wei Yuan immediately boiled with rage and pounced on Lin Feng, but suddenly he was stopped. The man said that he didn't expect to be in such an awkward situation and apologized for Wei Yuan's behavior, calling Lin Feng his younger sister's husband, and after pondering the stranger's words for a bit, Lin Fei realized that in front of him was senior prince Song Yunluan, after which, Lin Feng motioned for the eldest prince to sit down since he felt uncomfortable because he was standing. As soon as the prince sat down at the table, he was poured the tincture, and after inhaling its flavor, he immediately assumed that it was Lin Feng's taste. The elder prince asked Lin Feng how he was doing since he had been here for quite some time. After all, he had recently heard of a misunderstanding with the guard. In response, Lin Fei grinned and said that someone didn't know their place, and so he had to teach a lesson. Suddenly, the man behind the eldest prince became angry and told Lin Fei that although he was new here, he was already too careless and had even killed the deputy commander, so he didn't deserve a place next to his sister. Based on what he heard, Lin Feng assumed that this was his wife's younger brother, and contrary to expectations, he treated her well, but it was unclear what he was doing next to Sun Yunluan. Lin Feng explained that it was because he was here for the first time that he had to show that he was not a person to be bullied, and that he could only be able to rely on himself and not his men. Hearing this, the junior prince raised his fist to strike and shouted to Lin Feng that this was what they would check now, and a moment later, the princes clashed fists testing each other's strength, after which, Yunluan asked Yun Fei not to be so impulsive, because it would be bad if he harmed Lin Feng. Yunluan said that he was very embarrassed and apologized for what had happened and immediately bowed out. Lin Feng was amazed that Yun Fei was at the 5th level of Kaiyuan, and decided that he would no longer use the power of the demon-slaying and blood-drinking sword since it took away life force. Seeing Lin Feng's fatigue, Lin Hong became worried and said that she would bring some medicine now, to which he replied that she had nothing to worry about since he was just tired, but Lin Hong wasn't going to back down. Wei Yuan questioned Yunluan how they could let this simpleton go. After all, he had promised to deal with him, after which, Yunluan took him by the shoulder and told him that he took him with him after promising Uncle Wei that there would be no trouble from him. But still, Yunluan promised that he would help avenge Lin Feng's humiliation, but not now, because for now, we have to wait. The next day in the woods at the abandoned temple where the auction items are to arrive, Lin Feng sat in ambush waiting for the assassins, but still no one came after him, which meant that people in high positions were not so brainless. After which, he burst into tears, for now he could be at home with his beautiful Hong Yu and teach her cultivation, as suddenly he started to deny it as he is a man with a pure and innocent heart. He is a hero doing good deeds and he is not allowed to think of such dirty deeds. Suddenly, Lin Feng sensed someone's presence and immediately looked around, and he saw that not far from the temple 2 groups of people had gathered to fight. The man in the straw hat stumbled over his words and demanded that they give him the artifacts and then he wouldn't kill them, and the people on the other side began to discuss what they should do. Since the city gates were less than 15 kilometers away, and since the previous battles should have alarmed the guards, it would be at least 15 minutes before reinforcements arrived, to which Yun Fei replied that they had no choice and the only thing left was to fight. He ordered them to put all the things on their backs and make their way to the gate, realizing that the items would not be given to them. The assassin ordered his allies to leave no one alive here, and the 2 groups immediately ran at each other to win the battle. Suddenly, the head of the assassins said that no one would be able to escape from them and began to condense his power, which was the hallmark of chief low-rank masters. Then he attacked the enemy commander, preparing to kill him with a single blow. It was only at this moment that Lin Feng realized that he was in huge trouble. The warriors fought not for life but to the death, making a real massacre. Suddenly, one of One of the soldiers called the commander Your Highness and asked how seriously he was injured after that attack. He asked Li Qianhu why he chose to address him like that, and Li Qianhu explained that the senior prince personally came here to greet him, but he knows that his highness doesn't like excessive attention because of his status, and moreover he is the only one here who knows his true identity. Li Qianhu then explained to his highness that all 12 of the warriors present would not be able to survive today, so at least he should save himself, but the latter asked the servant not to worry, for he would not blindly do what others did. Just as suddenly, the chief low-level assassin attacked the talking Li Qianhu and Yunfei, and he immediately struck the assassin with his blade, but to his dismay, the assassin blocked it with his hand. Immediately afterward, the commander, picking a good moment, tried to kill the assassin, but the assassin managed to deflect backwards, dodging the attack and kicked his highness with his foot. Once the assassin opened up, Li Qianhu decided to see if he would die this time, but in response, the assassin hastily gathered concentrated energy in his hand. He threw it straight at Li Qianhu's forehead, causing him to suffer a severe wound. Stepping back from the blow, Li Qianhu asked Yunfei why the opponent still had strength, for he had once again begun to concentrate the energy in his hand to deal with these two. Seeing the killer Lin Feng's strength, he couldn't believe that he was a human. After all, the one would easily abandon people, and began to fight with himself, for if he tried to help them, it was not certain that he could win. But suddenly a sword appeared behind him, slaying demons and drinking blood, prompting him to make the right decision. Lin Feng fought the urge to help as best as he could as the assassin suddenly decided to finish the job. Lin Feng immediately grabbed his sword and jumped to their rescue, kicking the assassin with his foot. After feeling Lin Feng's strength, he flew back a dozen meters. Song Yunfei immediately recognized Lin Feng and asked why he was here, to which the latter replied that now was not the time to talk about it, because the main thing now was something else. After which, Yunfei told Lin Feng to hurry up and leave this place, for their enemy was a chief low-rank monk, and giving him the box, he told Lin Feng that they couldn't beat him. Just as suddenly, the assassin jumped towards them, but Lin Feng immediately hit her in her clothes, and was able to dodge his next blow without any trouble, then struck hard with his blade hoping to deprive the assassin of one of his arms. But suddenly, instead of a severed hand, a new one grew immediately, from which Lin Feng was astonished, for the opponent was far more dangerous than he had thought, and immediately used a divine leap to dodge the enemy's next attack. Lin Feng wondered what it was in front of him since it could regenerate, but at the same time was glad that in the past 2 days, he had learned divine leap. Suddenly the assassin began to speak again, stumbling over his words. He said he had a mission to accomplish. Lin Feng found it strange the way the assassin was speaking and the fact that he was almost not paying attention to Yunfei, and being at the chief low rank he was almost not controlling her, which could mean that his mind was clouded. Suddenly, the assassin began to concentrate his chi and created a vortex out of it, which caused great destruction, and killed some people in the process, but among them, he couldn't see Lin Feng who had suddenly disappeared. Just as suddenly, Lin Feng appeared right beside him without even getting a scratch after being hit, and instantly reacting, the assassin tried to hit Lin Feng, but he was able to dodge the blow. He immediately struck a blow with his foot, which he could not dodge. Then receiving the blow, the assassin immediately broke the distance between himself and his opponent. Once again, he dared to attack him using a large amount of energy, as Lin Feng suddenly rushed to strike the enemy, and said that overcoming adversity was a common thing for protagonists, after which he split the energy of the opponent who was trying to get rid of him, and punching him in the face he added that it was actually pretty damn hard. Then he ran his hand over the blade and said that he didn't care who he was, but this sword will incinerate him without any chance to regenerate. From the impact of such a force, a violent wave of fire burst into the sky, carrying away the assassin, from which everyone was surprised as suddenly arrows started flying at the assassins, and the cavalry rushed to the scene of the battle, the commander of which introduced himself as Tsu Nu, and offered the murderers to surrender. Immediately afterward, he shouted orders to kill all recalcitrant enemies, whereupon his warriors began to chase and kill the fleeing foes. Taking a breath, Song Yunfei asked Lin Feng if he was alright, but when he came closer he saw that he looked terrible, but Lin Feng said that he didn't have a drop of strength left, but he still wanted to help them. Zhu Nu stopped his horse near Yunfei and asked if he was alright, to which he replied that he didn't expect Zhu Nu to lead the group and come to the rescue. And Zhu Nu said that when the eldest prince heard about the attack, he immediately ordered him to bring people to help, but he would never have thought that someone would dare to ambush him so close to the city gate. Suddenly, one of the duffel bags shuddered and a spherical object emitting a purple glow flew out of it, and instantly reacting, Zhu Nu ordered them to move aside, and immediately tried to stop the unknown object with his attack, but suddenly the object began to swirl into an orange vortex and a chuckle was heard from it, after which, a hand appeared from the vortex and touched Zhu Nu's spear, scattering it like dust, and Zhu Nu himself fainted from the opponent's strength and flew off his horse. And out of the vortex, a blonde man with no clothes on began to emerge. Coming out of the vortex, he looked around and wondered if this place was another world. Seeing the stranger, Yunfei asked who he was, causing the stranger to immediately fly into the air, and looking at Yunfei and Lin Feng, he made sure that they were the people from the other world, and that they really didn't look like them at all. Just as suddenly the alien was surprised for a moment, sensing something in his head, and a moment later, he learned that their plan had failed, as the divine power had gotten here before he arrived, after which, he immediately rushed over to Yunfei and Lin Feng saying that he was limited on time, and right now, he only needed this item, and with just a single movement of his hand, he was able to take this item from Lin Feng, from which he was satisfied since he only had to wait for him to come. Yunfei was shocked at how easy it was for him to take away the Southern Heaven Realm relic. Just as suddenly, the alien felt some kind of presence behind him. That old man demanded he get out of here back to where he came from. The alien turned around and asked if the old man had been waiting for him, and asked if divine power could be felt from him. Suddenly the old man was beside the alien and put his hand on his face, and with a movement of the finger of his right hand, he was able to open an unknown portal, then jumped into it with the alien heading off into unknown space, and leaving a surprised Yunfei and Lin Feng here. Suddenly, a portal in the sky opened again, from which the fighting men appeared, but the alien had already been beaten and stripped of both his arms and legs. He admitted his defeat, but there was no point since he had already achieved his goal, and asked how long the old man would protect the world, and what he would do when they came. The old man asked how he found this place, but the old man said that the old man had done a good job of hiding the original world, and if Niantianguo hadn't taken the initiative to tell them, they would have been deceived by him. The alien said that Niantianguo should be called by that name at his side, and he hoped that the old man could destroy him to save time and take the place. The old man said they couldn't get away with it, to which the alien replied that the old man thought he was too important, since he wasn't even a god, and only one because the old man was on his own turf, while he hadn't even descended into his final form. After saying those words, the alien completely dissipated in a yellow flash. After finishing the deed, the old man used his power to put everyone on the battlefield to sleep. Lin Feng asked what the old man was doing here, to which Yunfei replied that he had probably come to save them. Lin Feng decided to get away from here to avoid getting into trouble, but suddenly Yunfei grabbed him and asked him not to leave as it was a bit scary here alone, and in return he would promise to put in a good word with his sister. Suddenly they heard the old man who had come down to them cough to get their attention. Only Yunfei and Lin Feng wanted to ask something from him as the old man knocked Yunfei out. Preparing for the battle, Lin Feng asked the old man what he wanted, and the one who felt hostile asked Lin Feng if he wanted to fight, from which he immediately apologized for being rude. The old man explained that he didn't have much time to chat, and so he had to inform Lin Feng that he had to visit Donglincheng. Not understanding what he was talking about, Lin Feng replied to the old man that he would definitely visit this place. After that, the old man left, but leaving he explained to Lin Feng that except for him, no one would remember the appearance of today's guy, because he was different. Lin Feng asked the elder what he meant by that, but he turned around and replied that he knew that he was from another world. Hearing this from Lin Feng, there were many questions for the old man, but he disappeared into the portal. A moment later, the fatigue of the previous day came over him and he slumped down, but before he lost consciousness, he saw reinforcements coming toward them. At the same time, the old man was instantly transported to his home. After that, he pulled off his outer garment, making it appear that he had divine power in his back, and with a little cough, he said he was in more pain. Suddenly, Lin Feng jumped up from the bed and asked about where he was, as suddenly Lin Hong hugged him and told him that she was dying of anxiety, because he said he would go shopping, but he was brought by the soldiers after which he slept all day and night. Lin Feng was surprised realized that a whole day had passed, and Lin Hong replied that according to the doctor, he had a qi deficiency, and so she had already prepared a medicine, after which, she let go of him and ran out of the room while Lin Feng begged her to stop, and in no time she brought the medicine, from which Lin Feng hid in a corner and began to discourage her, saying that it was because of the aftermath of the battle, and that ordinary herbs would not work on him because he was already at the 8th level of Kaiyuan, but she, presenting herself with a murderous expression, wanted to tell him something about it. After a while, Lin Hong gave him some medicine and told Lin Feng that he was no longer a child. Well, if he does decide to go off his meds, suddenly, in the middle of explaining, Lin Hong tripped over the door frame and began to fall, as suddenly she was picked up by the waist by a girl dressed in yellow, after which, Lin Hong apologized to her for what had happened and asked her who she was. Entering the room, the girl told Lin Feng that she never expected to meet him in such a state for the first time. Hearing this, Lin Feng turned around in surprise, and the girl told him that she was his wife, Song Yunlin. After cleaning himself up, Lin Feng asked her what she was doing here, to which she replied that she wanted to thank him for saving her brother, and then apologized for not being able to greet him in person, for on the one hand she was busy, and on the other hand she did treat him with a degree of contempt, but she in no way expected him to be attacked, and so she apologizes. From what he heard, Lin Feng could only lower his head thoughtfully. Princess admitted that she knew he had a claim on her, and she wanted him to be protected and hidden from view as much as possible, and she takes it for granted that because of her position, her enemies spare no effort to find every weakness including her fiancé. Lin Fei waved his hand and explained that he wasn't saying that killing the deputy commander-in-chief wasn't a bad idea, but he wasn't hiding behind it, even though he was a foreign prince and couldn't be safe forever. As suddenly the princess reached up to his face and thanked him for his understanding while promising to protect him forever. Suddenly, Lin Feng couldn't bear the embarrassment and pulled away from the princess, pondering about the princess aura that made him feel protected. Seeing the embarrassed groom, the princess grinned and had to admit that he was cute when he was embarrassed, from which Lin Feng tried to hide his embarrassment by asking her how she was doing. After all, it wasn't easy being a princess, which made her get sad and say that it was okay, but it was hard for a woman to be the head, let alone with several siblings looking after her. But since she has reached this position, she is no longer concerned with these hardships and difficulties. It is only about overcoming them and breaking through. Lin Feng mumbled that if she wanted to carry the crown, she would have to bear the weight of it. She then turned to Lin Feng and praised his words. She admitted that she admired him more and more, and when she ascended the throne, she would definitely give him a big wedding, and the world would never dare to look down on him again. Lin Feng blushed at her words as it was strange to hear such a thing from her, after which, she acknowledged that he was good at cultivation, and said that after that, he could ask Song Chidwa to show the capital. After all, she had already brought him to this house, after which, Lin Feng asked her to take care of herself as well, and she left. The sight of her made Lin Feng clutch his heart and recognize that she was very cool. Late at night sometime later, a frightened man ran out of the building. Suddenly someone grabbed him from behind and dragged him back into the building, and after only a moment, you could see the room sprinkled with blood. Then the door opened again, and out of the trashed room came someone wiping his hands clean of blood. He ordered the servants to take care of all traces and burn the place down. The next morning, guards were picking through the ruins of the building and feeding on finding any clues about the suspected arsonist. And passing by, Lin Feng chewing on a balloon noticed that something was burnt as he suddenly heard a vendor advertising his goods. Hearing about the sweets, Lin Feng couldn't resist and took one sweet ball for himself. Suddenly someone startled him by placing a hand on his shoulder and saying hello to him. The stranger was surprised by Lin Feng's behavior, but still said that he was looking for him and asked him to come with him. Suddenly, Lin Feng slapped him asking him how he wasn't ashamed of wasting delicious food. Immediately after which, Lin Feng found himself in the jaws of the blades, and the stranger asked how he dared to hit him. Lin Feng asked if the person knew who he was. After all, the stranger had just come and decided to take him away. He advised the stranger not to be a fool and not to do such foolish things, to which the stranger replied that he knew. The person he had captured was Lin Feng, the prince of Nanchu, who had married here. He then led him forcibly behind him, as someone watched from the window, pushing Lin Feng into the cell. One of the kidnappers asked if they could just leave him here, to which the other replied that he was just the princess's man, so they should just wait for the captain to return. And Lin Feng looking around the chamber was disappointed that he had only had a few days of peace and quiet, and now he was once again involved in something. After a short period of time, Lin Feng heard the kidnappers walking towards him again, but this time, they were leading someone. As soon as Lin Feng looked at the stranger, he started to be rude to him, asking what he was looking at, and introduced himself as Lao Zi, the name of a tempered body cultivator. He said that he would not bully him, but if it was Lin Feng on the contrary, he would not complain, but would just beat him, from which Lin Feng could only stare at him in surprise. Suddenly, Lao Zi began to ask that Lin Feng beat him to death, because if these guys didn't stop him, he would punch him in the face so that his parents wouldn't even recognize him. A moment later, the kidnappers pushed Lao Tzu into a cell, and he asked in surprise why he was pushed into this cell, to which one of the kidnappers said that if he really is the rabid dog he seems to be, then let him teach the guy in the cell a lesson. Noticing Lin Feng looking at him, Lao Zi suddenly began to shout, from which Lin Feng smirked contentedly, figuring out something to occupy himself with. A short time later, Lao Zi was already lying all beaten up. Lin Feng mumbled that a tempered body cultivator has a body more resistant to impact, and said that he wanted to ask a few questions if he didn't mind. Lin Feng asked what he was doing and why he was locked up here, after which the stranger introduced himself. His name is Zhou Ji, his family is from Xinjiang, and he just wanted to earn a little money to make ends meet. But last night he drank too much and so he drunkenly collapsed in the street. And he woke up because the Punishers said that last night he had drunkenly set fire to someone's house. The Punishers only said it was a merchant who was having a dinner party, but he set fire to the house and burned everyone to death. And then they brought him here. Lin Feng thought about the 12 Punishers being in charge of guarding, searching and arresting. After thinking about it, he asked Zhou Ji if he had really set the arson, and the man immediately began to wave it off and confessed that if he had the courage to do so, he wouldn't help every day for money. After which Lin Feng decided to tease, saying that he wasn't sure about it. After all, the one was so ferocious that he was even able to scare him, but he only rubbed his head, justifying that he had heard that in prison you have to behave much more rigidly to avoid abuse. Suddenly, Lin Feng heard someone approaching their cell. Walking up to the cell, the captain asked if he was Lin Feng, and Lin Feng immediately confirmed it, and asked who he was. In response, the captain told Lin Feng that he shouldn't speak until he was allowed to, but Lin Feng wasn't going to put up with such behavior, and grabbing the bars asked who he thought he was. After all, he's only here because his wife is Song Yunlin and he respects her enough to be here. Then the captain said that he would have to be offended a little to make him understand, and his men drew their swords. Suddenly Song Yunlin came up to them and asked who he was going to touch. She wondered why Mr. Li was neglecting her by arresting her husband, to which the latter replied that as part of his duties as an inspector, he had asked Lin Feng to recall the case of the attack on the city guards a few days ago. She then asked if he had heard that Lin Feng had been captured by the Punishers, to which her subordinate said that he hadn't heard of the summons, and the Lord Commander probably hadn't given him away. When she heard this, she grabbed the captain by the neck and asked what she should do about those who abuse their duties. She is now keeping an eye on all the officials, and if she were her father, she could execute him as well. When Wei suddenly arrived, he asked her to stop, because although His Highness had allowed her to supervise the officials, it was no more than that. He then explained to her that her father had appointed her to the position and there were many things she could not do at will. Hearing this, Song Yunlin got upset and admitted that she knew it, but since they were not acting according to the rules, then she thought. Wei asked her not to worry, because they would still have to pay for breaking the rules. Wei told the lawbreaker that the man had been working for him for years, and therefore he should know the rules. After which, Wei used some sort of technique and used it on Captain Li's arm, from which he felt the extreme pain of his bones being crushed. Wei said that he would free Lin Feng, while the captain on the other hand should think about his actions. Wei told the princess that she should take Lin Feng and get out of here, for which she thanked him, but recognized that if it wasn't him, she wouldn't treat him so loyally, from which Wei had no choice but to agree to it and apologize. As soon as the door opened, Lin Feng immediately threw himself into Yunlin's arms, and she called him a fool and asked him if he was alright. Looking at this, Zhou Ji realized that it was not surprising that Lin Feng was so young, but his cultivation was better than him, but at the same time, he was soft, malleable and not worried about his dignity. Then Zhou Ji threw himself at Lin Feng's feet and begged to be taken away with him, because he had not ignited the flames, and if he stayed here, he would be beaten to death. After looking at this, Wei asked the guy what was wrong with his self-esteem. Suddenly, a system window appeared in front of Lin Feng, stating that the path of becoming a god requires not only tremendous strength, but also unprecedented mastery of self-knowledge. Therefore, it was necessary to decide what would happen to this boy. While the reward and penalty were unknown, Lin Feng decided to save Zhou Ji, and a window appeared, informing him that the reward had been given out and the culprit of the incident had been officially released. And although Zhou Ji had been released, but the enemies would not stop there, and therefore the truth about the arson should be found out, and this matter could not be abandoned. After reading the text, Lin Feng was surprised that Zhou Ji would have died if he hadn't been saved, and whispered something in the princess's ear. Seeing this, the Punishers wanted to stop him, but the captain grabbed one of them by the arm and bowed, after which, the princess ordered that if anything were to happen, they should be detained by the northern department, and it did not concern the southern department, which Lord Wei immediately agreed to. When the princess and the captives left, Wei asked Li Xingfu what he would do next, and he replied that he would do his part. Li Xingfu was angry at Wei. He was sure that this smug old man wouldn't do anything to him, and Lin Feng was an unworthy prince who wouldn't dare to interfere. Going outside, the princess apologized to Lin Feng since she was the reason why he was repeatedly attacked, but Lin Feng replied that it was impossible to survive alone in the jungle, and she wasn't the only one tormented by strange and surreal thoughts. He told her that since his enemies started using him as a way to kill her, then he had no choice but to kill them. Li Xingfu arrived at the senior prince's residence and told the man how everything had gone. He realized that he had failed the task and therefore he was sure that he deserved to be punished. Song Yunlun asked Li Xingfu how long he had been in Xinjiang, to which the latter replied 5 years, and the prince decided to remind him that 5 years had passed since then, and therefore he felt that Li Xingfu had relaxed a bit. When Li Xingfu heard this, he hit his forehead on the floor and shouted that he deserved to die, and the prince explained that after Li Xingfu first entered the city, many things had changed, but it is because of him that he is able to maintain his position as a close to the emperor. In the case of the Gate City, the people from the southern celestial kingdom openly attacked the western Rin Empire, but now his father is investigating and Li Xingfu has been asked to clean up his tracks, and throwing the broken off part of the throne. The prince shouted that he had instructed his man to find a random hustler who would do everything, and he didn't care at all about his co-workers. Li Xingfu asked the prince not to worry. After all, he had learned his lesson from this situation and it would not happen again. The prince approached Li Xingfu and ordered the latter to get out of his sight, and henceforth without any disappointment. Meanwhile, Lin Feng asked Zhou Ji if he really wanted to go with him, to which he answered affirmatively, and being ready to die for Lin Feng asked to accept him. But Lin Feng smirked and asked what kind of fool would believe his words, and allowed the one to stay here. As Yunlin suddenly called out to Lin Feng, and the latter in a burst of love immediately ran to her, which made Zhou Ji could only envy that. The princess reported to Lin Feng that from today onwards, he would be serving in the 12th criminal department. After all, it's a handy job since he knows the neighborhood better than anyone. Whereupon she told us that the 12th department consisted of 12 branches, 6 higher and 6 lower. The higher branches are responsible for the internal supervision of the entire Qin Empire, while the lower branches oversee security at meetings of those close to the emperor's family. The top 6 criminal departments in Xinjiang are divided into southern and northern. Li Xingfu, on the other hand, manages 100 overseers in the 3 northern departments. Mao Qing manages the 3 southern departments, and they cooperate and help each other, and all because the emperor was furious 2 days ago. So Lin Feng will be infiltrating the 12th department to help her with something. After a while, Lin Feng was delivered the account books of the Zhongping trading house, and they had to riddle with it all, causing Zhou Ji to be astonished because of the number of them. The man who delivered them said he could have done it himself, but he had an urgent inspection waiting for him. Lin Feng asked Zhou Ji to help with reading all of this, but the latter admitted that he couldn't read, because of which Lin Feng got angry and said that he had better learn to read, or else he would personally have to experience the power of knowledge. Reading the books, Lin Feng realized something, namely, fading, Lu Shui, and Shi flew at about the same time. They were going to different places, the path to which passed through Nanchu, which could not be a mere coincidence, although he couldn't view all the trade routes of the world, but he knew for sure that strategically important materials passed through these ones. And last night, the Chamber of Commerce had held a banquet with all the dignitaries, but none of them had survived the fire. The culprit, however, was not handed over to the government, but was arrested in the southern city division. Thinking about it, Lin Feng refused to believe that there was nothing suspicious about it, after which, he looked at the list of trading houses and saw Wang Yuda, one of the bosses of Zhongping Trading Company, but he was present at the banquet and was still alive, and now that he has taken Zhou Ji to him, he has fallen under his responsibility, and if Lin Feng's prediction is correct, Wang Yujie will not survive today. But first he thought that Zhou Gil should go with him, but he didn't understand who Lin Feng was talking about, causing him to be astonished, because he had taught him pinyin, but he still didn't know. He asked him how he pronounced the word and he replied, private world, but Lin Feng thought that he had bitten his tongue and asked to read another word, but he heard, out of residence. Lin Feng was amazed that he had managed to meet a person unable to distinguish between 2 words. After a while, Lin Feng was speeding across the rooftops, dragging Zhou Ji behind him, making him seasick. quick. He rushed to Wang Yuda to save Wang Yuda from being killed and broke into his house to do so. But when he got there, he found that no one was there. Lin Feng asked Zhou Ji if he knew this family. After all, he had worked in Xinjiang for many years, to which he replied that this was the west side, where poor people usually settled, and Mr. Wang's residence was the only one in the area, but they had not seen his daughter. Suddenly the doors of the house opened and someone's face peeked out, but Lin Feng noticed the stranger's presence and immediately rushed towards the stranger, causing him to break the door and fly out with his blade. But Lin Feng was able to dodge this lunge without any problems, while Zhou Ji barely managed to get his feet away from the shockwave, after which Lin Feng used his dragon fist destroying the ground beneath him, because of which the enemy had to cover himself from the dust flying at him, and taking this opportunity, Lin Feng gave him a crushing leg kick, from which the enemy flew straight into the house, destroying it in the process. Lin Feng approached the assassin walking through the dust and ruins, just as suddenly someone, begging for help, grabbed his leg. The girl said that she was Wang Yongqin and wanted to talk about her father, but suddenly she fainted. Meanwhile, the assassin, without wasting time, ate some sort of pill and was once again filled with energy. Once again, he was able to rush towards Lin Feng wanting to deal with his target. Blast marks were visible on all sides of the city, and department members were trying to figure out what was going on, but Captain Pei ordered them to shut them up and immediately report everything to their commanders and officers, and the rest of them would go after him to help control the situation. Because of Lin Feng and the assassin's battle, there were many explosions destroying the residence, from which Zhou Ji was astonished, seeing the strength with which those fought. Lin Feng was trying to figure out what was wrong with this guy. After all, that guy had a desperate fighting style, but he still decided to give that guy a more serious blow, which caused the enemy to lose his arm, after which Lin Feng immediately gave him a crushing kick with his foot, finishing the fight. He brought the blade of his blade up to the assassin and asked who had sent him. Suddenly a system window appeared in front of him, which says that not all people can control their actions, and the guy in front of him is just a hired poor guy whose death will not solve anything, and yet it is up to him to kill the enemy or not. Lin Feng thought about it. After all, it was said that his death didn't matter. Suddenly, the assassin grabbed the blade with his hands and took his own life. Then the system notified Lin Feng that he would receive a reward for killing the man in black. Seeing that the assassin was finished, Zhao Ji admired Lin Feng, for he had killed the opponent in 3 strikes. Lin Feng asked if Ms. Wang was alright, to which Zhao Ji replied that she was fine and that he had never had the chance to be so close to a girl before. Hearing this, Lin Feng started beating Zhao Ji with his foot, demanding that he let the poor girl go. Just as suddenly, Lin Feng heard someone land on a rooftop nearby. It was Pei Tunan. Following through the gate came Hua Fei, wanting to see who had made all that noise. Immediately after, Hu Zhe broke one of the walls of the residence, and upon entering, he immediately recognized Lin Feng's uniform belonging to the 12th department. After which, Wen Zhengqin, who was the commander of the 12th Northern Department, approached Lin Feng and apologized for not having time to say hello in the morning, and he immediately introduced Lin Feng, Wen Yuli being his daughter, and said that the latter liked soft food. Lin Feng was embarrassed at what he heard and told Uncle Wen that he shouldn't have talked about soft food, but he was angry at being called uncle, because he thought that Lin Feng was trying to get close to him so that he would let him marry Yunlin. Lin Feng assumed that not many people present were in favor of his wedding. Just as suddenly, Wen Yuli tugged Lin Feng's clothes and asked him not to get angry, as master was too worried about Yunlin, and so he disagreed with his highness's decision, for which she wanted to apologize. Lin Feng smirked at her and promised her that he would not be angry with him in that case, then asked her what this kind girl's name was, to which she immediately replied that her name was Wen Yuli. Wen Zhengqin asked his daughter to play on the playground while the adults went about their business. After seeing his daughter off, Wen Zhengqin asked Lin Feng what he was doing here. After all, he was supposed to solve an arson case, and Lin Feng said that when he was investigating he noticed that things were not so simple and someone was discreetly trying to silence him, and by tracing the family's surname to this house he found the killer ruthlessly attacking him. Wen Zhengqin said that this morning, the southern department sent people to arrest a rogue. He thought that everything had been solved, but as it turned out, suddenly, Hua Fei stood on the corpse and suggested that it was Lin Feng who had found the criminal and made so much noise, and also suggested that he might have been planted by Li Xingfu. Suddenly Luo Han arrived on the scene and asked Hua Fei not to waste time. Then noting that everyone here was from the north, he explained that the western part of the city was under the control of the southern department. Hua Fei decided to tease Luo Han by saying that a lady had joined their campaign. This made him angry and immediately rushed over to Hua Fei to teach him to keep his mouth shut. And Hua Fei, on the other hand, swung his huge sword, saying that he hadn't thought of having to hit a woman. Lin Feng and Zhou Ji decided to watch the show, and Lin Feng complained about not taking food. Suddenly, Hua Zhe grabbed Hua Fei and ordered him to stop causing trouble. Luo Han ordered Hua Zhe to keep this dog tethered or else he wouldn't be left alive next time. Pei Tunan came down from the wall and said that he hoped not to meet Luo Han again, even though they lived next door. Hua Fei asked Tunan to order him to let him go since Hua Zhe wouldn't be able to kill him with a 7th level cultivation anyway, to which Tunan replied that Hua Zhe had passed the 8th level a couple days ago. Caught in an awkward situation, Hua Fei patted Hua Zhe's hand and asked him to tense his arm and strangle him. Pei Tunan bowed to Wei Zhengqin and reported that the western city had seen the smoke, and it was imperative that they report the circumstances to the commander to avoid being held accountable. After thinking it over, Wei Zhengqin recognized that it made sense and decided that he would leave this place to him, and from now on, Tunan would be in charge of Lin Feng. After watching what was happening, Lin Feng and Zhou Ji were upset that they didn't get to see the battle. Pei Tunan was furious and demanded to know why they had come here, because it was all because of them, and how dare they sit silently and look at them. Hearing Lord Wei's words, Luo Han decided to leave, being satisfied that he could be free from the hassle. Hua Fei couldn't believe that things were happening like this, but Hua Zhe squeezed his hand harder and agreed that it was strange, but asked him not to worry about it. After all, they would get the job done. Releasing himself from the big man's grip, Hua Fei said that he would leave it up to them, for if Tunan hadn't told them to come here, he would still be investigating the situation at the castle gate. Once everyone had left, Tunan told Hu Jie that he would leave everything to him, as he himself had an urgent task to rush to. Once Hu Zhe left, Tunan was able to breathe quietly, and asked Lin Feng what had happened here, and what they had found. He then ordered his men to look all over the area for clues. I'll end here. So guys, if you like this video and want to continue, collect 1000 likes on this video. Also click on the bell and like, but most importantly, leave a comment. Until the next video.
In a world where beast control talent dictates one's fate, a reincarnated